The harsh October wind whipped through the small railroad depot of Holbrook, Arizona Territory, as Violet Foster stood alone, her last hope departing with the same train that had brought her west, billowing black smoke now just a smudge on the horizon. It was 1883, and at 22 years old, she had gambled everything on a promise that had turned to dust the moment she stepped off that train. Violet shivered, clutching her carpetbag, the only possession she had left in the world. Inside were her meager clothing, a faded photograph of her parents, a small Bible, and $17.43, all that remained after purchasing the one-way ticket from Boston. The letter from Thomas Blackburn had been quite clear. He would meet her at the Holbrook depot, marry her immediately, and she would have a home at last. But Thomas had never appeared, and the station master's pitying glance told her everything she needed to know. "Miss, we're closing up now," the station master said, avoiding her eyes. "Train don't come back through till Wednesday next." "But Violet's voice caught. "Is there a hotel nearby where I might stay?" The man gestured vaguely down the dusty Main Street. "The Prairie Rose takes in boarders, but they're particular about unaccompanied ladies. You might try the church." Violet nodded stiffly, summoning what remained of her dignity. She'd been a schoolteacher back east until consumption claimed her parents, and their mounting medical debts had taken their modest home. The advertisement in the Boston newspaper had seemed like Providence, a rancher seeking a bride, promising respectability and security. She stepped out into the fading daylight. Holbrook wasn't much more than a wide dirt street lined with false-fronted buildings. A saloon, general store, blacksmith, and a few other establishments stood in various states of weathering. Violet drew a deep breath and started walking, her kid leather boots, her one luxury from better days, already gathering dust. Before she reached the church, the sky opened. The sudden cloudburst sent townsfolk scurrying for cover, and Violet found herself running blindly, her carpetbag clutched to her chest. She turned down a side street, seeking any shelter from the downpour, when her foot caught on an uneven board. She tumbled forward, landing hard on the muddy ground. "Whoa there, you all right, madam?" Violet looked up through rain-soaked hair to see a tall figure silhouetted against the darkening sky. He reached down, offering a strong, calloused hand. "Let me help you up. This storm came out of nowhere." She accepted his assistance, finding herself face to face with a man perhaps 5 years her senior. His features were sun-weathered but handsome, with clear blue eyes that regarded her with concern beneath the brim of his sodden hat. "Thank you, sir," Violet managed, embarrassed by her disheveled appearance. "Name's Adam Vance," he said, tipping his hat. "You look like you could use some shelter. My place is just up the road." Violet hesitated. The impropriety of accepting such an offer warred with her desperate circumstances. Adam seemed to read her thoughts. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Caldwell, is there. Nothing improper, I assure you." The rain intensified, making her decision for her. "Thank you, Mr. Vance. I'm Violet Foster." They hurried down the muddy lane, Adam carrying her carpetbag despite her protests. As they rounded a bend, a modest but well-maintained ranch house came into view, with a sturdy fence surrounding the property. Adam pushed open the wooden gate and gestured for her to enter. "Enter your new home," he said with unexpected gentleness, "at least until this weather breaks." Violet stepped through, unaware that those words would change the course of her life forever. The warmth of Adam Vance's ranch house enveloped Violet like an embrace after the chilling rain. A plump, gray-haired woman bustled toward them, her eyes widening at the sight of their dripping forms. "Heavens above, Mr. Vance, what's all this then?" Her gaze fixed on Violet with undisguised curiosity. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is Miss Foster. Found her caught in the storm. She needs dry clothes and something hot to drink." Of course, of course. Come with me, child, Mrs. Caldwell said, already guiding Violet toward a back room. "Let's get you sorted." Adam watched them go, then removed his soggy coat and hat. He ran a hand through his damp hair, troubled by the lost look in the young woman's eyes. He'd seen that look before in his own reflection after returning from the war to find his family farm in ruins and his parents gone. In the spare bedroom, Mrs. Caldwell clucked and fussed over Violet. "These should fit well enough," she said, presenting a simple dress. "My niece left these when she married and moved to Flagstaff." "You're very kind," Violet murmured, accepting the clothing. "I won't impose long. Once the storm passes, nonsense. That cloudburst is just the beginning. The station master was predicting 3 days of rain." Mrs. Caldwell handed her a towel. "Change now. I'll have coffee waiting." Left alone, Violet undressed quickly, grateful for the clean, dry garments. The room was simple but comfortable, a bed with a patchwork quilt, a pine dresser, and a small window that revealed the rain-lashed countryside. She wondered about Adam Vance. He seemed a gentleman despite his frontier appearance. When Violet emerged, she found Adam and Mrs. Caldwell in the kitchen. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. "Please sit," Adam said, rising from his chair. "Mrs. Caldwell makes the best biscuits in the territory." "Only because Mr. Torres at the Mercantile saves me the good flour," the housekeeper replied with practiced modesty. Violet sat, accepting the steaming mug with gratitude. "I must explain my situation," she began hesitantly. "I arrived on today's train expecting to meet a man named Thomas Blackburn. He'd advertised for a bride and we'd exchanged letters, but he wasn't at the station." Adam's expression darkened. "Thomas Blackburn from the Lazy Bee?" "Yes, you know him." A heavy silence fell. Adam and Mrs. Caldwell exchanged glances. "Miss Foster," Adam said gently, "Thomas Blackburn died 3 weeks ago. His horse threw him while he was checking fence lines." Violet set down her cup with trembling hands. "Dead. But I received a letter from him just last month. He sent money for my train passage." "The mail can be slow out here," Adam explained. "His foreman probably didn't know about your arrangement." The full weight of her situation descended upon Violet. Stranded in a strange town with limited funds and no prospects, it was her worst fear realized. "I'll have to find work," she said, more to herself than her hosts. "I was a teacher back in Boston. Perhaps the local school already has a teacher," Mrs. Caldwell finished sadly. "Young fellow from Pennsylvania arrived this spring." "I see," Violet whispered, fighting back tears. Adam cleared his throat. "Miss Foster, I don't mean to presume, but I have a proposition. My ranch is doing well, but my books are in disarray. Mrs. Caldwell manages the house, but neither of us has much schooling. If you're familiar with figures and record keeping, I am," Violet said, her heart quickening. "I kept my father's accounts for years. Then I'd like to offer you a position as my bookkeeper. Room and board here, plus wages. Temporary, of course, until you decide on your future plans." Violet studied him, searching for any hint of deception. His eyes met hers directly, honestly. Mrs. Caldwell nodded encouragingly. "It would be a blessing to have another woman around," the housekeeper added. "The men respect Mr. Vance, but this place could use a feminine touch." "Thank you, Mr. Vance," Violet said finally. "I accept your offer on a temporary basis." Adam nodded, a small smile lifting the corner of his mouth. "Good. We'll start tomorrow if that suits you." That night, lying in the unfamiliar bed, Violet stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain. Thomas Blackburn's death had closed one door, but perhaps Adam Vance's kindness had opened another. Temporary, she reminded herself. This arrangement was temporary. But as sleep finally claimed her, Violet couldn't ignore the strange sense that she had somehow, against all odds, found exactly where she was meant to be. Morning brought clear skies and a flurry of activity. Violet woke to the sounds of men's voices and horses in the yard. Dressing quickly in her borrowed clothes, she ventured to the kitchen where Mrs. Caldwell was preparing a massive breakfast. "Good morning, dear. Sleep well." The housekeeper handed her a cup of coffee. "Better than I expected," Violet admitted. "Are all those men Mr. Vance's employees?" "Ranch hands," Mrs. Caldwell confirmed, sliding biscuits into the oven. "8 regular plus a couple seasonal boys. They eat like wolves, so I start early." Adam entered, bringing with him the scent of fresh air and leather. He'd already been working, judging by the dust on his boots. "Miss Foster," he nodded. "Thought we'd begin with the ledgers after breakfast, if that's amenable." "Of course," she replied, surprised by her eagerness to prove her worth. Breakfast was a boisterous affair. The cowboys eyed Violet with undisguised curiosity, but maintained respectful demeanors under Adam's watchful gaze. She learned their names: Rodriguez, Jenkins, Old Pete, Young Jimmy, the Wilcox brothers, and Davis, the foreman. They spoke of cattle, water sources, and wild horses in the hills. After the men departed for their daily tasks, Adam led Violet to a small room off the main house that served as his office. Stacks of papers covered every surface, and leather-bound ledgers stood in haphazard piles. "As you can see," he said with a rueful smile, "organization isn't my strong suit." Violet surveyed the chaos. When was the last time these accounts were properly reconciled? Properly? Never. I keep track of major expenses and income, but the details. He shrugged. "I'll need several days just to sort through everything," she said, already rolling up her sleeves. Adam nodded. "Take whatever time you need. I'll be clearing the south pasture if you have questions." Left alone, Violet lost herself in the familiar comfort of numbers and record-keeping. By midday, she had established a basic organizational system and discovered that, despite the disorder, Adam Vance ran a surprisingly profitable operation. His cattle breeding program showed particular promise. Mrs. Caldwell brought her lunch thick sandwiches and lemonade. "He's a good man, you know," the housekeeper said, glancing at the half-sorted papers. "Works harder than any of his men, built all this from nothing after the war." "He fought in the war?" Violet asked, curious about her employer. "Union cavalry, doesn't speak of it much." Mrs. Caldwell paused. "Lost his brother at Gettysburg. His parents passed while he was away. Came home to find strangers living in his family home back in Pennsylvania." Violet thought of her own losses: her mother to consumption first, then her father following soon after, as if unwilling to remain without his wife. How did he end up in Arizona Territory? Wandered west, like many men after the war. Worked cattle drives, saved every penny. Bought this place when it was little more than a shack and a few scraggly cows. Pride colored the older woman's voice. Now it's one of the finest spreads in the county. The days fell into a rhythm. Violet rose early, helping Mrs. Caldwell with breakfast before retreating to the office. Adam would check in periodically, impressed by her progress. In the evenings, they often sat on the porch, discussing the ranch's finances and future prospects. "You've uncovered money I didn't even know I had," Adam remarked one evening, reviewing her latest calculations. "According to this, we can afford to expand the North Range if we secure water rights." "The operation is fundamentally sound," Violet replied. "You just needed better organization." Their fingers brushed as she passed him another document, sending an unexpected warmth through her hand. She withdrew quickly, flustered by her reaction. Adam cleared his throat. Miss Foster, tomorrow's Sunday. We generally ride into town for church services. Would you care to join us? Church meant town. Town meant people. Questions. Violet hadn't ventured beyond the ranch boundaries since her arrival. I have nothing suitable to wear, she said truthfully. Actually, Adam said, I took the liberty of asking Mrs. Caldwell to order some things for you from the mercantile. They arrived yesterday. At her surprised expression, he added, Consider it an advance against your wages. The gesture touched her deeply. Thank you, Mr. Vance. In that case, I would be pleased to attend services. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. Violet dressed carefully in the new calico dress, simple but well made, with a matching bonnet. She felt almost like her old self again, though the face that looked back from the small mirror showed subtle changes. Her skin had taken on a healthy glow from the fresh air, and her eyes seemed brighter, less shadowed by worry. Adam waited by the buggy, dressed in a clean black suit that transformed him from rugged rancher to distinguished gentleman. He helped her up with a courtly gesture that seemed at odds with his usual practicality. The drive to town allowed Violet to appreciate the beauty of the land. The terrain was unlike anything she'd known in Massachusetts' vast open spaces punctuated by dramatic rock formations, the distant mountains purple against the horizon. It's breathtaking, she murmured. Different kind of beauty than back east, Adam said, but it gets in your blood. He pointed toward a distant mesa. Apache land begins there. Used to be conflict, but things have settled some since the treaties. You sound as though you respect them. Adam nodded. Fought against men like them in the war, learned there's courage and honor on both sides of any fight. Holbrook looked different from Violet's first impression. The streets were busy with Sunday traffic families in wagons, cowboys in their best clothes, merchants opening for post-church business. She felt eyes turning toward them as Adam helped her down from the buggy. That's Vance's new lady, someone whispered audibly. Mail-order bride meant for poor Tom Blackburn. Violet stiffened, but Adam placed a steady hand at her elbow. Folks talk. It's the most entertaining thing to do in a small town. The church service was simple but heartfelt. Afterward, Adam introduced her to neighbors and friends. Most were welcoming, though Violet noticed several young women eyeing her with undisguised speculation. Adam Vance is quite a catch, Mrs. Caldwell had told her earlier. Half the eligible ladies in the county have set their caps for him over the years. As they prepared to leave, a florid-faced man intercepted them. Vance, heard you've taken in Tom's intended. His gaze raked over Violet assessingly. Shame about his passing, fine property going to waste now. Clive, Adam nodded coolly. Miss Foster is working as my bookkeeper, and I wouldn't call the lazy bee wasted. Tom's cousin from Texas is coming to claim it next month. Bookkeeper, eh? The man's tone suggested he believed otherwise. Convenient arrangement. Adam's expression hardened. Mind your implications, Hargrove. Miss Foster is a lady deserving of respect. The tension between the men was palpable. Violet placed a restraining hand on Adam's arm. Mr. Vance, I believe Mrs. Caldwell is waiting for us. Adam nodded stiffly and they departed, leaving Hargrove scowling after them. Who was that unpleasant man? Violet asked as they drove homeward. Clive Hargrove. Owns the largest spread east of here. Been trying to absorb smaller ranches for years. Adam's knuckles were white on the reins. He and Tom Blackburn had some disagreements over water rights. Tom wouldn't sell, no matter how much pressure Hargrove applied. And now that Mr. Blackburn is gone, Hargrove thought he'd have a clear path to the property. Tom's cousin inheriting complicates his plans. Adam glanced at her. I apologize for his behavior. Your reputation shouldn't suffer because of my offer of employment. I've faced worse gossip, Violet said, though the encounter had unsettled her. Her tentative sense of belonging suddenly seemed fragile. That evening, after a quiet supper, Violet retreated to the porch. The sunset painted the landscape in brilliant oranges and purples, a sight she still found breathtaking after 2 weeks at the ranch. Adam joined her, offering a cup of coffee. "Penny for your thoughts." "I was thinking about how quickly circumstances can change," she admitted. "A month ago, I was selling my parents' belongings to purchase a train ticket west. Do you regret coming?" His question held genuine concern. "No," Violet replied, surprising herself with her certainty. "Despite everything, I believe I'm where I'm supposed to be." Adam studied her, his expression thoughtful. "You know, when I first saw you in that storm, you reminded me of something." "What was that?" "A painting my mother had a woman standing against the wind, her face determined despite the storm around her." His voice softened. "You have that same strength, Violet." It was the first time he'd used her given name. The intimacy of it warmed her more than the coffee. "Adam," she began hesitantly, "today in town, that man implied." "Hargrove implied what many are probably thinking," Adam finished, "that I've brought you here under false pretenses." "Does that concern you?" He turned to face her fully. "What concerns me is your comfort and reputation. Mrs. Caldwell's presence provides propriety, but small towns have long memories and loose tongues. Are you suggesting I should leave?" The thought brought an unexpected pain to her chest. "No," he said quickly. "I'm suggesting we consider a more permanent arrangement, one that would silence the gossips and provide you with security." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "Violet, I know this isn't romantic, but would you consider a marriage of convenience? You would have a home, a name, a position in the community. I would have a partner to help manage the ranch." Violet stared at him, speechless. A marriage of convenience. It wasn't so different from her arrangement with Thomas Blackburn, yet somehow it felt entirely different. "This is very sudden," she managed finally. "Of course, you needn't answer now." Adam stood, clearly uncomfortable with his own proposal. "It's just something to consider for both our benefits." After he left, Violet remained on the porch long after darkness fell, contemplating a future she hadn't imagined. Marriage to Adam Vance wouldn't be the love match she'd dreamed of as a girl, but perhaps it could be something equally valuable, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. By morning, she had made her decision. The territorial judge arrived 2 weeks later to perform the ceremony. It was a simple affair, just the ranch hands, Mrs. Caldwell, and a few neighbors as witnesses. Violet wore her best new dress, a deep blue that complemented her eyes. Adam had presented her with a slender gold band, apologizing for its plainness. "It was my mother's," he explained. "I can get you something finer from Phoenix when—" "It's perfect," Violet interrupted, touched by the sentiment. The vows were straightforward, spoken clearly in the ranch house parlor. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Adam hesitated only briefly before placing a chaste kiss on Violet's lips, their first physical contact beyond a hand at her elbow or arm. The touch, though fleeting, left her strangely breathless. The celebration afterward was more boisterous than the ceremony. The hands had prepared a feast, and someone produced a fiddle. Dancing commenced in the yard, lanterns strung between posts creating a festive atmosphere. Mrs. Vance, Davis, the foreman, approached with a grin. "The boys and I have a wedding gift for you and the boss." He presented a wooden box hand-carved with intricate designs. "It's beautiful," Violet said, genuinely moved by the gesture. "Rodriguez did the carving. Man's got talent." Adam joined them, accepting congratulations from his men with evident camaraderie. Violet watched him, trying to reconcile the businesslike nature of their arrangement with the genuine warmth she felt growing between them. Later, as the party wound down, the inevitable awkwardness of their situation emerged. Mrs. Caldwell had prepared the master bedroom for both of them, moving Violet's things while they were at the ceremony. "I can sleep in the office," Adam offered when they were finally alone, "until you're comfortable with other arrangements." Violet felt a blush heating her cheeks. "That seems unnecessary. The bed is large enough for both of us to maintain proper distance." Adam nodded, clearly relieved by her practicality. "As you wish." That night, lying rigid on her side of the bed, Violet listened to Adam's steady breathing. He had been a perfect gentleman, changing in his office and entering only when she was settled beneath the covers. Now, a respectful foot of empty mattress separated them, a physical manifestation of the careful boundaries of their arrangement. Yet despite these boundaries, Violet found herself hyper-aware of his presence, the subtle scent of soap and leather, the warmth radiating from his body, the occasional shift of the mattress when he moved. "Adam," she whispered, unsure if he was still awake. "Yes." His voice came immediately, suggesting he too had been lying awake. "Thank you for your kindness since I arrived." A pause, then. "It's not kindness, Violet. You've earned your place here. The ranch is already running smoother with your management. Still, you took a chance on a stranger." The darkness seemed to make conversation easier, removing the need to guard expressions or avoid eye contact. "Sometimes," Adam said softly, "a person just knows when something is right, even if they can't explain why." His words hung in the air between them, loaded with possible meanings. Violet found herself wondering if he was speaking solely about business decisions. "Good night, Adam," she said finally. "Good night, Mrs. Vance." The new title sent an unexpected thrill through her. Mrs. Vance. She was no longer alone in the world. Whatever this marriage might lack in traditional romance, it offered something Violet had feared lost forever: a place to belong. The seasons changed, and with them, the rhythms of ranch life transformed. Summer heat gave way to autumn crispness, which in turn yielded to winter's occasional dusting of snow on the distant mountains. Through it all, Violet and Adam settled into their partnership, each finding their role in their unusual arrangement. Violet's responsibilities expanded beyond bookkeeping. She took over correspondence with cattle buyers, negotiated supply purchases with merchants, and gradually assumed management of the household accounts from Mrs. Caldwell, who was grateful to focus solely on cooking and cleaning. Adam, for his part, seemed to flourish with Violet's support. Freed from administrative concerns, he devoted more energy to improving his breeding stock and expanding the ranch's operations. The distance they had maintained in the early days of their marriage gradually diminished, though certain boundaries remained inviolate. They still shared the master bedroom, but physical intimacy extended only to an occasional touch of hands or the brush of shoulders as they worked side by side. Adam never pressed for more, respecting the terms of their arrangement, but Violet sometimes caught him watching her with an expression that made her wonder if his feelings, like hers, were evolving beyond their original agreement. One crisp December morning, Violet rode out with Adam to inspect a new section of fence. She had become a competent horsewoman under his patient tutelage, another skill she'd never imagined acquiring in her Boston life. "Davis thinks we should consider purchasing the Henderson parcel," Adam said as they rode. "It would secure our access to the western water sources." "The asking price is high," Violet replied, "but I've been reviewing our accounts. If the spring drive goes well, we could manage it without borrowing." Adam smiled at her. "Mrs. Vance, you continue to amaze me. Most wives would be discussing curtain patterns or social engagements. Most wives weren't hired as bookkeepers first, she reminded him lightly. They crested a rise, revealing a panoramic view of the ranch buildings nestled in the valley, cattle dotting the distant pastures, the ribbon of a stream catching morning light. Adam reined his horse to a stop. Sometimes I still can't believe all this is mine. He glanced at her. Ours, I should say. It's beautiful, Violet agreed. In truth, she had come to love this wild land with its harsh beauty and limitless skies. The thought of her cramped Boston apartment now seemed like a memory from someone else's life. A sudden commotion in the distance caught their attention, riders approaching fast, dust billowing behind them. Adam tensed, his hand moving instinctively to the rifle in his saddle holster. "Wait here," he instructed, urging his horse forward to intercept the approaching group. Violet watched anxiously as Adam met the riders Davis and two other hands, gesturing urgently toward the north boundary. Adam's posture changed, tension evident even at a distance. After a brief conference, he galloped back to Violet. "Hargrove's men have diverted the creek that feeds our north pasture," he explained, his voice tight with controlled anger. "They've built a dam on their property that's left our cattle without water." "Can they do that?" Violet asked, alarmed. "Not legally, but water rights are complicated in the territory. It would take months to resolve through proper channels." Adam's jaw clenched. "Hargrove knows exactly what he's doing. Without that water source, we'll have to move the herd or watch them suffer." "What will you do?" "I'm going to talk to Hargrove," Adam said grimly. Man to man, Violet felt a surge of fear. "Adam, Hargrove is dangerous. Everyone says so." "I've faced worse than Clive Hargrove." He softened, seeing her concern. "Don't worry, I'll take Davis and some of the boys. We'll outnumber them, and Hargrove's too shrewd to start shooting over a water dispute." Despite his reassurances, Violet spent the afternoon in a state of anxious anticipation. She tried to focus on household accounts, but her mind kept conjuring images of confrontation and violence. By evening, when Adam still hadn't returned, her worry had escalated to full-blown fear. Mrs. Caldwell tried to comfort her. "The men know what they're doing, Mrs. Vance. The boss has handled worse situations." "I should never have let him go," Violet fretted. The housekeeper raised an eyebrow. "Let him? My dear, you may be his wife, but no one lets Adam Vance do anything. The man makes up his own mind." Violet smiled despite herself. It was true Adam's stubborn determination was both infuriating and admirable. Finally, as darkness fell, hoofbeats announced their return. Violet rushed to the porch, relief washing over her at the sight of Adam, whole and apparently unharmed. His expression, however, was thunderous. "Hargrove refused to negotiate," he announced as he dismounted. "Claims he needs all the water for his expanded operation. What happens now?" Violet asked, following him into the house. "We have 3 days to move the north herd to the east pastures." Adam removed his hat, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "It's not ideal. The grazing isn't as good, and it'll put strain on those water sources too. There must be something we can do legally. I've already written to the territorial office, but these matters take time we don't have." Adam poured himself a measure of whiskey. "Hargrove's playing a long game. He wants the Lazy Bee property, and he figures pressuring us is the way to get Tom's cousin to sell when he arrives. Why is the Lazy Bee so important to him? It sits between his land and ours. With it, he'd control nearly all the water in the county." Adam downed his whiskey. "I should have seen this coming." "You couldn't have predicted he'd dam the creek," Violet argued. "No, but I've known what kind of man he is." Adam's voice hardened. "Men like Hargrove don't stop. Today it's water rights. Tomorrow it'll be something else." That night, the space between them in bed seemed smaller somehow. Violet could feel tension radiating from Adam as he stared at the ceiling. "We'll find a solution," she said softly. Adam turned toward her, his face half shadowed in the moonlight filtering through the window. "Do you ever regret it, Violet, agreeing to this marriage?" The question startled her. "No," she answered truthfully. "Do you?" "Never," he said with unexpected fierceness. "You're the best thing that's happened to this ranch, to me." Something shifted between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing beneath the surface of their practical arrangement. Adam reached across the divide, his hand finding hers atop the quilt. "We'll face Hargrove together," he said. "Whatever comes." Violet intertwined her fingers with his, this small intimacy somehow more significant than any they had shared before. "Together," she agreed. Morning brought a new complication. As the ranch hands prepared to move the north herd, a rider approached from town, the sheriff, his expression grave. "Adam," he called, dismounting in the yard. "Got some news you need to hear." Violet joined them on the porch, immediately concerned by the sheriff's demeanor. "Hargrove's filed a complaint," the lawman explained. "Claims you threatened him yesterday. He's pushing for the territorial marshal to investigate." Adam's face darkened. "That's absurd. We had words, but no threats were made." The sheriff shrugged. "It's your word against his, and Hargrove's got friends in Phoenix. Just wanted to warn you he's making noise about your marriage, too." "My marriage?" Adam's voice was dangerously quiet. "What business is that of his? He's suggesting it ain't legitimate. Says Miss Foster here was promised to Tom Blackburn and you took advantage." The sheriff looked uncomfortable. "I know it's hogwash, but Hargrove's spinning quite a tale in town." Violet felt her face flush with anger and humiliation. "Our marriage is perfectly legal. The territorial judge performed the ceremony himself." "I know that, madam." The sheriff nodded respectfully. "But Hargrove's implying there was impropriety before the wedding, saying Adam here needed to make an honest woman of you after bringing you to the ranch." Adam's hands clenched into fists. "Hargrove's gone too far." "That's why I came to warn you," the sheriff said. "Don't give him ammunition, Adam. He's trying to provoke you into doing something rash." After the sheriff departed, Adam paced the porch like a caged animal. "This is my fault. I've exposed you to gossip and slander." "It's not your fault," Violet insisted. "Hargrove is a despicable man who will use any tactic. I should confront him." "No." Violet caught his arm. "That's exactly what he wants. We need to be smarter than him." Adam looked down at her hand on his arm, then met her eyes. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. "You deserve better than this, Violet. Better than a marriage of convenience that brings you nothing but trouble." "Is that all you think our marriage is?" she asked softly. "Convenient?" Something flickered in his eyes, vulnerability, hope, an emotion she couldn't quite name. Before he could respond, Davis called from the corral, needing Adam's attention for the cattle drive. "We'll finish this conversation later," Adam promised, his hand briefly covering hers before he strode away. The cattle move consumed the next 3 days. Adam and most of the hands were gone from dawn till dusk, returning exhausted each evening. Violet threw herself into ranch operations, determined to keep everything running smoothly in Adam's absence. On the 4th day, with the herd finally settled in their new pasture, Violet decided to ride into town for supplies. Mrs. Caldwell needed flour and sugar, and Violet herself wanted to face the townspeople directly rather than hide from the gossip Hargrove had stirred. The mercantile owner greeted her cordially enough, but Violet noticed the whispers that followed her through the store. She held her head high, completing her purchases with dignity. As she loaded her packages into the wagon, a woman approached elegantly dressed with a calculating look in her eyes. "Mrs. Vance, I presume? I'm Eleanor Hargrove, Clive's sister." Violet nodded stiffly. "Miss Hargrove, I wanted to express my sympathies for your situation." The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "It must be difficult, being thrust into marriage with a man you barely knew, after the tragic loss of your intended." "My marriage to Mr. Vance was entered into willingly by both parties," Violet replied evenly. "There's no need for sympathy." Eleanor's smile tightened. "Of course. Still, one wonders if you might have made a different choice had you known all the facts about Adam Vance." Despite herself, Violet felt a flicker of unease. "What facts do you mean?" "Only that Adam has a history of impulsive decisions where women are concerned." Eleanor adjusted her gloves. "His first engagement ended rather dramatically when the young lady discovered certain truths about his character." First engagement. Adam had never mentioned being engaged before. Violet struggled to maintain her composure. "I find it best not to give credence to gossip, Miss Hargrove. It's hardly gossip when I witnessed it myself. I was friends with Rebecca Martin before she broke her engagement to Adam and fled back east." Eleanor's eyes gleamed with malicious pleasure. "Ask your husband about Rebecca sometime. Ask him what drove her away." With that, Eleanor glided away, leaving Violet unsettled. She finished loading her purchases mechanically, mind racing. Adam had never spoken of a previous engagement. Was there truth to Eleanor's insinuations, or was this simply another tactic in the Hargroves' campaign against them? By the time she reached the ranch, Violet had decided to confront the issue directly. She found Adam in the barn, checking a horse's injured leg. "Who is Rebecca Martin?" she asked without preamble. Adam straightened slowly, his expression guarded. "Where did you hear that name?" "Eleanor Hargrove approached me in town. She implied there was something I should know about your previous engagement." A muscle worked in Adam's jaw. "Eleanor Hargrove," he said bitterly, "has been trying to damage my reputation for years." "Then there was an engagement," Adam sighed, gesturing for her to sit on a hay bale. "Yes, before the war. Rebecca was from a wealthy Philadelphia family that summered near my parents' farm. We were young, infatuated. I proposed before enlisting. What happened? When I returned from the war, everything had changed. My parents were dead, the farm sold for taxes." His eyes darkened with old pain. Rebecca's family had lost much of their fortune in bad investments. They were pushing her to marry a banker's son instead. She broke the engagement, Violet surmised. "Not immediately. She came west with me, agreed to start a new life here." Adam's hands tightened on the horse's lead rope, but frontier life wasn't what she expected. The hardships, the isolation, she grew increasingly unhappy. When her parents offered to bring her home if she'd marry their preferred suitor, she accepted. "I'm sorry," Violet said, hearing the old hurt in his voice. "The Hargroves were involved even then," Adam continued. "Clive courted Rebecca briefly after she broke our engagement. When she rejected him too, the Hargroves spread rumors that I had mistreated her, driven her away with cruelty." "And that wasn't true." Adam met her eyes directly. "I've made many mistakes in my life, Violet, but I've never raised a hand to a woman or broken a promise. Rebecca left because she wasn't suited to this life, not because of any wrongdoing on my part." Violet believed him. In the months she had known Adam, she had seen his integrity in every action, his fairness in dealing with everyone from ranch hands to business associates. "I should have told you before," Adam admitted. "It happened years ago, and I rarely think of it now. But I should have anticipated the Hargroves would use it against us." "Against me, you mean," Violet said. "They're trying to create distrust between us." Adam reached out, his hand covering hers. Are they succeeding? No, Violet said firmly, but I want no more secrets between us, Adam. This marriage may have begun as a practical arrangement, but it's become more than that to me. The confession hung in the air between them. Adam's eyes darkened, and he moved closer, his hand rising to touch her cheek with unexpected tenderness. It's become more for me too, he said softly. For a breathless moment, Violet thought he might kiss her a real kiss, not the brief, ceremonial touch of their wedding day. But a shout from the bunkhouse broke the spell, and Adam stepped back, his hand dropping to his side. I need to help with the evening chores, he said, regret evident in his voice. But we'll continue this conversation, Violet. I promise. That promise sustained Violet through a busy evening of ranch activities. Something fundamental had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of deeper feelings that had been growing steadily beneath their practical partnership. Later that night, as they prepared for bed in their now familiar routine, the air seemed charged with unspoken words. Adam emerged from his office in his nightclothes, pausing at the bedroom threshold. Violet, he began, his voice unusually hesitant. I want you to know. A frantic pounding at the front door cut him off. Adam immediately tensed, grabbing his revolver from the bedside drawer. Stay here, he instructed, moving quickly toward the commotion. Violet ignored the directive, following at a distance. Adam opened the door to reveal young Jimmy, one of the ranch hands, his face streaked with soot and blood running from a cut on his forehead. Boss, the boy gasped. Fire at the North Line shack. Rodriguez and Pete are trapped. Adam sprang into action, barking orders as other hands emerged from the bunkhouse. Violet grabbed medical supplies while Mrs. Caldwell prepared bandages. I'm coming with you, Violet insisted when Adam prepared to leave. It's too dangerous. Pete and Rodriguez might need immediate care, she argued. Mrs. Caldwell taught me basic nursing during the influenza outbreak last month. Adam hesitated, then nodded tersely. Stay close to me. The ride to the north boundary was tense and swift. As they approached, the night sky glowed orange with the flames consuming the small line shack where boundary riders took shelter during their shifts. Men were already forming a bucket brigade from the nearby stream, fighting desperately to control the blaze. Where are Pete and Rodriguez? Adam demanded, dismounting. Inside, Davis shouted. Roof collapsed when they were sleeping. We're trying to clear a path. Adam immediately joined the men attacking the burning structure while Violet helped organize the water line. The heat was intense, smoke billowing across the clearing. Through the chaos, Violet heard Adam shouting orders, his voice steady despite the danger. Finally, the men emerged, carrying the unconscious forms of Pete and Rodriguez. Violet rushed forward, directing them to lay the injured men on blankets spread nearby. Both were suffering from smoke inhalation, and Rodriguez had severe burns on one arm. For the next hour, Violet worked alongside Mrs. Caldwell, who had arrived with a wagon, treating the injured men while the others fought to contain the fire. By dawn, the blaze was extinguished, leaving only smoldering ruins. Adam found Violet tending to Rodriguez's burns. His face was streaked with soot, his clothing singed in places, but he appeared unharmed. How are they? He asked, kneeling beside her. Pete's regained consciousness. His injuries are minor. Rodriguez's burns are serious but not life-threatening if infection doesn't set in. Violet looked up, noticing the grim set of Adam's mouth. What is it? This wasn't an accident, Adam said quietly, ensuring only she could hear. Davis found evidence of coal oil around the foundation. Someone set this fire deliberately, knowing Pete and Rodriguez were inside. Violet's hand flew to her mouth. Hargrove. Can't prove it, but who else would benefit? Adam's eyes were hard as flint. if those men had died. But they didn't, Violet said firmly, gripping his arm. We got to them in time. The ride back to the ranch was subdued. Pete was conscious but weak, riding in the wagon with Rodriguez, who drifted in and out of awareness. The hands spoke in hushed voices about the implications of an intentional fire. Boss, if Hargrove's escalating to arson and attempted murder, what's next? Davis asked the question everyone was thinking. Adam's response was measured. We'll increase night patrols. No one rides alone. And I'm sending for the territorial marshal tomorrow. This goes beyond water rights disputes. At the ranch, after the injured men were settled and the others dispatched to their duties, Adam and Violet finally found themselves alone in the kitchen. Dawn light filtered through the windows as Mrs. Caldwell prepared coffee. You were remarkable tonight, Adam said, his voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. The way you took charge of treating the men, keeping everyone calm. I did what was necessary, Violet replied simply. As did you, Mrs. Caldwell set coffee cups before them and tactfully retreated, leaving them in privacy. Hargrove must be stopped, Adam said, staring into his cup. But I fear this will get worse before it gets better. Violet reached across the table, taking his hand. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore, Adam. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. No, I'm not alone, he agreed softly, and that makes all the difference. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken feelings. Then Adam stood, still holding her hand, and drew her to her feet. Come with me, he said. He led her out onto the porch, where the rising sun cast golden light across the land. The ranch was waking, horses nickering in the corral, chickens clucking in their pen, the distant lowing of cattle. Despite the night's drama, life continued its steady rhythm. When I first saw you at the depot, Adam said, standing there in the rain with nothing but your bag, I thought you were the bravest person I'd ever seen. I was terrified, Violet admitted, but you didn't show it. You held your head high, faced whatever was coming with dignity. Adam turned to her, taking both her hands in his. I opened my gate and offered you shelter, thinking it was temporary. I never imagined you would become so essential to this place, to me. Violet's heart thundered in her chest. Adam, let me finish, he said gently. Our marriage began as a practical solution to a difficult situation, but somewhere along the way it became the most real thing in my life. His hands tightened on hers. I love you, Violet. Not as a business partner or a convenient wife, but as the woman who makes me want to be a better man. Tears sprang to Violet's eyes, emotions overwhelming her. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have for months now. Adam drew her closer, one hand rising to cradle her face. Then perhaps, he murmured, it's time our marriage became true in every sense. His lips met hers in a kiss, nothing like the brief touch of their wedding day. This was a claiming, an affirmation, a promise. Violet responded with equal fervor, her arms circling his neck as months of restrained feelings finally found expression. When they finally parted, both breathless, Adam rested his forehead against hers. Mrs. Vance, he said with a smile that transformed his features. Would you do me the honor of being my wife in truth, not just in name? Violet laughed softly, joy bubbling up despite the challenges they still faced. I already am your wife. Then perhaps, Adam suggested, his voice deepening, we should retire to our room and make it official. Their lovemaking was tender, unhurried despite the months of waiting. Adam was gentle with her inexperience, patient in his instruction, generous in his attention to her pleasure. Afterward, lying in his arms as sunlight streamed through the window, Violet felt a completeness she had never known before. I never expected this, she murmured against his chest. When that train left me alone at the depot, I thought my life was ending. Instead, it was just beginning." Adam's arms tightened around her. "I promise you, Violet, whatever Hargrove throws at us, whatever challenges come, we'll face them together. This is your home now, our home, and nothing will take that from you again." The promise sustained them through the difficult weeks that followed. The territorial marshal investigated the fire but found insufficient evidence to charge Hargrove directly. Water disputes continued, requiring constant vigilance along property lines. Rumors in town persisted, though many neighbors rallied to support the Vances after the fire. Through it all, Adam and Violet's bond deepened. Their marriage, now complete in every sense, gave them strength to withstand external pressures. Each night in each other's arms was a reminder of what they were fighting for, not just land and water rights, but the future they were building together. Spring arrived with unexpected developments. Thomas Blackburn's cousin finally appeared from Texas, not the hardened rancher everyone expected, but a young widow named Sarah with 2 small children and a determination to make the Lazy Bee her fresh start. Hargrove immediately began pressuring her to sell, but Sarah proved unexpectedly resilient. "My husband wanted to come north, make a new beginning away from the memories," she explained over tea in the Vance's parlor. "His death didn't change my mind about leaving Texas." Violet found herself drawn to the young mother. "Hargrove will make things difficult for you." "Let him try," Sarah said with quiet steel. "I've survived worse." Adam and Violet offered support and advice to their new neighbor, recognizing a kindred spirit in her determination. As spring progressed, an unexpected alliance formed between the Vance and Lazy Bee ranches, providing mutual protection against Hargrove's manipulations. Summer brought the final confrontation. Hargrove, frustrated by his failure to pressure either ranch into selling, made a desperate move, filing legal documents claiming historic water rights that would effectively cut off both properties from essential resources. "It's a spurious claim," the lawyer Adam consulted explained. "But it could take months to resolve in territorial court, and your cattle won't survive without water." "Then we fight this another way," Adam decided. The plan they developed was bold and risky. Using Violet's meticulous record-keeping, they documented every illegal action Hargrove had taken, from the dam construction to suspicious activities around the time of the fire. Sarah Blackburn contributed evidence of harassment and intimidation against her family. Together, they bypassed the local authorities and took their case directly to the territorial governor. "It's a gamble," Adam acknowledged. "Hargrove has friends in high places. But so do we," Violet reminded him. The months of fair dealing with cattle buyers and merchants had built a network of business associates willing to testify to the Vance's integrity. The journey to Phoenix was long and arduous, but the governor granted them an audience, impressed by their documentation and the unity of their presentation. Within a week, a special commissioner was dispatched to investigate the water rights disputes in Holbrook. Hargrove's fury at this development manifested in a final, desperate act. As Adam and Violet returned from Phoenix, they found the ranch in chaos, a significant portion of their herd stampeded through broken fences, valuable breeding stock missing. Hargrove's men were spotted near the east pasture just before it happened, Davis reported grimly. For 3 days, the hands worked around the clock to recover scattered cattle and repair damaged fences. Violet worked alongside them, her determination matching Adam's as they fought to salvage their livelihood. On the 4th day, as they were counting their losses, unexpected visitors arrived: the territorial marshal, accompanied by 2 deputies and a shackled prisoner. Caught one of Hargrove's men trying to drive your cattle across the territorial line, the marshal announced. He confessed to acting on Hargrove's orders, not just the cattle rustling, but the fire too. The evidence was damning. By nightfall, Clive Hargrove himself was in custody, his sister Alina fleeing east to avoid association with the scandal. The commissioner's investigation revealed years of illegal activities, manipulated records, and threatened witnesses. "It's over," Adam said that night, holding Violet close as they stood on their porch, surveying their land in the moonlight. "Hargrove will spend years in territorial prison." "We won," Violet marveled. "We did more than win," Adam replied, turning her to face him. "We built something that could withstand his attacks, not just fences and buildings, but community, alliances, trust." His hands rested gently on her still flat stomach. "A future." Violet covered his hands with her own, smiling at the wonder in his eyes when she told him the news that morning. Their child, conceived in love, would be born in the winter, a new generation for the ranch they had fought so hard to protect. "When I was abandoned at that depot," Violet said softly, "I thought I had lost everything. I could never have imagined finding so much more than I ever dreamed." Adam kissed her tenderly. "Enter your new home," he had said all those months ago, opening his gate in the rain. Neither of them had understood then that home wasn't just the ranch house or the land, but what they would build together, a partnership, a family, a legacy. Under the vast Arizona sky, they sealed their triumph and their future with a kiss, the first stars emerging above the land that was truly, finally, irrevocably theirs. 5 years later, Violet Vance stood on the porch of the expanded ranch house, watching her husband lift their giggling 4-year-old daughter onto his shoulders. Their 2-year-old son toddled after them, determined to keep up with his father and sister. The sight filled her heart with contentment that still sometimes felt like a dream. The Vance ranch had prospered beyond their expectations. With Hargrove's downfall, fair water rights had been established throughout the county. Adam's innovative breeding program had produced hardier cattle suited to the Arizona climate, bringing buyers from as far as California. Violet's management had turned a successful ranch into a thriving enterprise that now included orchards, grain fields, and even a small dairy operation that supplied Holbrook with fresh milk. "Mama, look," little Elizabeth called from her perch on Adam's shoulders. "Papa says I can ride Thunder tomorrow, with me holding the lead rope," Adam clarified, grinning at his daughter's excitement. "She's going to be a horsewoman like her mother." "And what about you, James?" Violet asked, scooping up her son. "Will you ride with your sister?" The boy nodded solemnly, his eyes so like Adam's serious beneath his mop of dark hair. Sarah Blackburn, now Sarah Davis, after her marriage to Adam's foreman, 2 years earlier rode up the lane, her own children in tow. The Lazy Bee and Vance ranches had maintained their alliance, sharing resources and support through seasons of plenty and hardship alike. As the families gathered for their weekly dinner together, Violet reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From abandoned bride-to-be to beloved wife and mother, from desperate stranger to respected rancher's partner, it had been a transformation as dramatic as the Arizona landscape itself. That evening, after the children were asleep and their guests had departed, Adam found Violet in their bedroom, brushing her hair at the dressing table he'd had shipped from Denver as an anniversary gift. "Happy?" he asked, meeting her eyes in the mirror as his hands came to rest on her shoulders. "Completely," she answered truthfully. "Though I was thinking about that day at the depot, how close I came to leaving on the next train." Adam bent to kiss her neck. "I thank God every day that you stayed." Violet turned on the bench to face him. "Do you remember what you said when you opened your gate that day?" Enter your new home, Adam recalled with a smile. Little did I know how prophetic those words would be. For both of us, Violet said, rising to wrap her arms around his neck. You gave me a home when I had none, but you've told me that I made this ranch truly feel like home to you too. You did, Adam agreed, drawing her closer. You brought life and purpose to everything I'd built. Before you, I had land and cattle and buildings. After you, I had a home. As their lips met in a kiss, still charged with passion after years of marriage, Violet silently blessed that rainy day at the Holbrook Depot. What had seemed like abandonment had in fact been destiny, leading her not to Thomas Blackburn, but to the man who would become her true partner in every sense. Outside, the Arizona night spread its starry canopy over the ranch, their home, their legacy, their own piece of the wild, beautiful West. And inside, wrapped in each other's arms, Violet and Adam Vance continued writing the story that had begun with a simple invitation on a rain-swept day. Enter your new home.